everybody, and welcome to the second video in the series on some of the basics of Vedic astrology, this being the first actual class that we're getting into the planets, so to speak. We spoke in the introduction the last time about the planets. Well, we're going to go deeper and actually get into the actual planets. Now, as you may remember from the last video that I did, if you watched that one, if you didn't, there's a link below if you want to go watch that video before you watch this one. We were talking about the planets as being conscious incarnations of Vishnu. Vishnu being the aspect of God that permeates all things, right? And there's a lot of important information in that first video, so please do go watch it. But I just wanted to build upon that and say, you know, really one of the best ways to make the planets come to life is to think of the planets as being alive. Seems a little bit of a no-brainer, but, you know, really, if you think of the planets as being actual beings, you can get so much from astrology, because you'll understand things on such a deep level, whereas previously you may not have gotten quite as much understanding of a planet. I mean, after all, it's easier to hopefully understand another person, right? They have certain characteristics, certain traits, certain personalities. In specific situations, they're going to tend to act in a certain manner. And the planets really are no different. They each will act in a specific manner. And we're going to go over the characteristics of each of the planets and do so in a way that will hopefully help you to integrate the information in a really good manner so that it really helps the planets come to life. So building upon the information of last class when we were talking about each of the planets as being an incarnation of Vishnu, well, the incarnation of Vishnu that's represented by the sun is actually Rama. So we're going to do a little story about Rama. For those of you who don't know much about the life of Rama, this is for you. For those of you who already know a lot, well, you know, it's good to kind of be reminded, right? So once upon a time, long time ago, in this galaxy, right? I'm not going there, right? Once upon a time, a long time ago, there was an Asura king called Ravana. Now, who are the Asuras? They're a race of demons with like superhuman powers, but demons don't always mean something that's evil in Vedic thought. It means something that's driven, something that may be given to act upon selfishness. Asuras can equally sometimes do good things, right? But Ravana was a demon king who did a lot of bad things, right? This demon king displayed great selfishness and arrogance and was constantly going against Dharma at any cost. You know, every particular opportunity he had, rather than necessarily doing the right thing, he always wanted to do that which was, you know, best for him, right? And even if that went against Dharma, he would just always do that. Now, he preceded all these actions by previously performing strict penance, being very dharmic, and had won many boons or blessings from certain gods for having done that strict penance. So this made him very hard to conquer. And unrighteousness was beginning to become very rampant in the world due to the existence of Ravana. So what happened was that Brahma and the rest of the devas went to Vishnu to request his assistance in getting rid of Ravana. So Vishnu agreed that he would incarnate and become just a little bit tongue-twisted. Vishnu said that he would incarnate and come into this world and get rid of Ravana and defeat his unrighteous rule. Okay? So Vishnu was born as Rama, who was dharmic throughout his entire life, right? Rama was the crown prince of a city called Ayodhya, right? And so he was next in line for the throne. But what happened was that one of his father's wives was jealous of Rama being the heir to the throne. So she wanted her son to be on the throne instead. So what she did was she set it up so that the throne was taken away from Rama. That's a rather long story in and of itself, so I'm not going to go into that. But what happened as a result was that Rama was exiled to the forest for 14 years. And because Rama wanted to make sure that his father's name wasn't tainted, he accepted the exile. He did this even though his father had already died, right? He still didn't want to taint his father's name, even though his father had already died and he, would have been the natural heir to the throne. So, he actually decided to stick by Dharma in that particular instance, honor his word, even though he could have just gone into the throne. So Rama's wife Sita and his brother Lakshman would not depart from Rama, so they went to the forest with him. And after many years of wandering, what began to happen was that the news of Rama's wife Sita began to reach the ears of Ravana, the demon king, who then became determined that he was going to abduct Sita and make Sita his wife. And he succeeded in this, and Rama was very heartbroken, obviously, and equally very angry, and made every effort to find Sita and rescue her. After some time, he actually succeeded and destroyed Ravana and fulfilled the purpose of his incarnation. After that, he returned to his native city and he was crowned king. But after that happened, after he became king, one of his subjects spoke ill about Sita, and the subject said that once a woman resides with another man, she should not be allowed to return to her husband because she's quote unquote tainted. The subject also said that though Rama might be willing to accept Sita, that he would never accept Sita as being the wife of Rama. This even though Sita was taken against her will by Ravana, that she remained outside Ravana's palace eating only roots and fruits because she wanted to eat what her husband was eating while he was, surviving while trying to rescue her. So as to not go against Dharma, Rama decided that as king, he should do what's necessary to make his subjects happy. So he abandoned his wife Sita to the ashram of Rishi Valmiki. Okay, Sita was pregnant at the time, and she gave birth to Rama's twin sons, and after that, she died. After hearing of her death, Rama became very, very deeply upset, but because he was king, he felt that he had no rights to feelings of his own. So he concentrated on ruling the earth until his death, as he felt was righteous for a king to do. And as we go through and look at the qualities of the sun, we can really begin to see a lot of the qualities of Rama present in the qualities of the sun. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in to our slideshow and start with the slide that points out some qualities of Rama that are equally qualities of the sun. So just give me a moment or two to get into screen sharing mode here, and we'll do just that. Okay, so let's get the slideshow going. Okay, we don't need this one. We'll go to the next one. Okay, so the avatar for the sun is Rama. Rama is the embodiment of Dharma, as you saw from the story. He was willing to sacrifice his kingdom for the dignity of his father, right? Equally, he sacrificed his beloved for the sake of the kingdom. Basically, one of the things that the sun does as a planet is it gives the necessary strength that an individual needs to make the difficult sacrifices that life really requires that each of us make in order to fulfill our soul's purpose or our dharma. And Rama, in terms of his life, actually did all of those very things. He was very big on not going against Dharma, even though he could have very easily taken the throne, even though there were ways he could have avoided going into the forest, even though he could have, as king, kept his wife. He decided not to do all of those things because he felt it wouldn't be dharmically correct for the role that he was meant to fulfill here on the planet, and he was here to embody Dharma. So obviously the sun fits in with the incarnation of Rama because it gives the necessary strength that we need to make difficult sacrifices. We're making sacrifices for the kingdom that our soul is here to create on earth, and the domain that we're meant to rule, each of us as individuals, right? And I don't mean like the property that we hold or any of those things, but I don't exclude that either. I mean, you know, the people we're here to protect, the role that we're here to fulfill. As individuals, we need to have the strength to be able to sacrifice from time to time. When there's a strong sun, we have that strength to sacrifice. When there's a weak sun, that strength to sacrifice is somewhat diminished. So let's take a look at the next slide. And we're going to learn some more names of the sun. As we can already see, the sun is an avatar, incarnation of Vishnu, and is Rama, okay? So let's look at some more qualities of the sun. Let's go back one. I think I have to get out of the screen. I went too far there, didn't I? Let's go back to this slide. Great, and let's go here. All right, so here are some further names of the sun that are equally very meaningful, and they're good things to remember in order to help you to understand qualities of what the sun represents in astrology. And as I said, this helps to make the sun come to life. And it's interesting, I'm going to kind of skip down the list to one that is lower down after I bring up my fun little pointer tool to play with. This should actually be Savitar, okay, rather than Savita. Okay, so I would put an R there, but I can't change it right now. So Savitar, the giver of life, right? And that's what the sun does. It gives life to each individual. It gives life through its warmth. Without the sun, we'd all eventually die, wouldn't we, right? So the sun breathes warmth into things. It makes things come alive. And just as when our sun is strong, we have a strong sense of spirit, a strong sense of drive to bring the things into our life that we really need to bring into our life to make our life flow in alignment with our own particular dharma. So too does the sun give life as Savitar. So once again, there should be an R at the end of that. The normal name for the sun in Vedic astrology is Surya, the supreme light. None is brighter than the sun. As a matter of fact, there's a story about the sun where the sun had chosen a wife, which was the daughter of Tvashtar, also known as Vishvakarman, the celestial architect, so to speak, right? But the sun's new wife found it hard to be around the sun because he was so brilliant, right? And so eventually his light was diminished so he could be with his wife. But the sun is the supreme light, exceptionally bright. None is lighter or brighter than the sun, just as none is lighter or brighter than the truth of our soul. The sun, as the body that moves across the sky over the course of the day, is known as Ravi, or the firebird. This is a loose translation of that. Another name of the sun is Dinakarta, the one who makes the day. And when the day comes along, what does it do? It chases away the night. Light comes in. So it chases away the darkness. It chases away ignorance. It purifies us of all that is impure so that we can become clear, so that we can become whole. And as we'll see, those are also qualities of the sun. Another name similar to Dinakarta is Tamahanta, the killer of darkness. Okay? And here is the name of the sun as that which purifies, which is Pushan. Pushan is the greatest purifier. It's interesting. I'll make a little side note here. Revati, the last of the nakshatras, which Revati generally tends to relate to the end of one phase of existence. And the next phase of existence is yet to come into being. What's happening? What's happening when we die and our soul leaves, this material plane, so to speak, well, we go through these processes of purification. We're going through a purification in this lifetime, but equally, Pushan helps us to purify, integrate information that if we come back again, that we're meant to carry into the next life, so that we have built upon the information of the previous lifetime. And we've already covered Savitar. Another name of the sun is Mitra, or friend. And obviously, with the sun being related to the Atman, or the soul of everything, the soul really should be our best friend. If you think about it, the body here is only temporal. The people we interact with, they too, sadly enough, are only temporal. When we leave this realm, we take nothing else with us but our soul. So if you're not able to befriend your soul during this particular realm of existence, then you, on one level, are not fulfilling your purpose, right? So Mitra represents that quality of the sun that is the friend, okay? Shura. Shura means hero. Well, each of us is the protagonist or the hero of our own life. Heroes have to have the courage to rise above the challenges that they confront over the course of their life. They have to have the grace and the strength, and equally the awareness with which to confront any difficulties that may surface. So those are some of the names of the sun, which if you meditate upon those names, it'll give you a lot more depth as to what the sun's really all about. Okay. So here is some text, and we're going to begin by going into some particular stanzas from Brihat Parashara Horus Shastra. I've put them here in the video because they're quick things that you can memorize, which will bring to life some of the things that we're talking about. So it's said, the sun, Saturn, Mars, the waning moon, Rahu, and Ketu are Krura, or cruel. The remaining grahas are Somya. Mercury is Krura if joined with Akrura. Now, some of this will become important in the future videos, but I wanted to read it all here. So the sun, Saturn, Mars, the waning moon, Rahu, and Ketu are Krura, or cruel. The remaining grahas are Somya, or gentle. And Mercury is Krura if it's joined with a Krura planet. Now, most people are familiar with hearing malefic and benefic. But Krura and Somya is a much better way of looking at it, because malefic gives the concept of bad, like, this planet's bad. And it's not that that planet is bad, it's just that it goes about fulfilling its purpose in a harsh manner, right? It's many times, especially with the sun, it's doing what's necessary for the well-being of the individual, right? And how can that really be bad? It's just that as the sun goes about doing what's right for the individual, it's very cruel in how it does it. It does it in a very harsh manner rather than planets like Jupiter or Venus, who will do things in a gentle manner, okay? So the sun is considered a Krura graha, or cruel, also known as malefic, but you'll come to a deeper meaning if you understand it as Krura or Somya than you will thinking of it as malefic or benefic. So here's a little bit about what Krura grahas are about, even though we've already spoken about it, okay? And here's how the sun fits in as a Krura graha. As Krura grahas go about the fulfillment of their purpose in a horoscope, they're going to do their work in a very harsh manner, right? You'll usually find people who are athletes, they have a lot of strong Krura grahas because they need to in order to be brave and to be strong and rise to challenges, so to speak. So here's how the sun fits into being a Krura graha. As the sun gives life to all things, and gives life to things in the individual's life, in the individual's horoscope, it does so through purification. This purification happens on every single level. It happens on the physical level, right, by us purifying toxins from our body. It does so on the mental level by purifying our mind of thoughts that are not helpful to the creative existence of our being. And it does so on the emotional level by processing out the emotions that cloud our vision from seeing things in a clear manner. And it does all these things in order to strengthen our connection to the soul. The individual soul is connected to the Atman, or the soul of all things. And the sun gives life to this connection through purifying each and every one of us. It'll cause us to make sacrifices on the lower, more mundane level in order to more deeply connect to the higher or pure nature of the soul. Here's an interesting concept about the sun astrologically, and it's a really simple technique to work with. That which the sun influences in the chart by aspect, or through conjunction, or simple interaction with, by ruling that planet's sign, things along those lines. Things that the sun influences in the chart, the individual tends to become separated from. The difficulty of that separation is determined by the dignity of the sun. The sun, as he goes about fulfilling his purpose in the horoscope, is making sacrifices for the well-being of his kingdom. That's why he separates the individual from those particular things, right? So, for instance, if the sun is influencing Venus for a man, right, the sun may separate him from his spouse for something higher or something greater in his life. Right? It's a simple way of understanding what the sun does. It sacrifices, it makes sacred. It'll separate the individual from one thing in order to create something else. But why is the sun doing that? It's doing so because it's making sacrifices for the well-being of its kingdom, for the benefit of the soul. And it's interesting because you can also look at Leo, and whatever is in Leo, whatever house is placed in Leo, will help an individual to understand that which the sun is actually making sacrifices for, right? So whatever bhava or house is placed in Leo will show some of the most important things that an individual will make a sacrifice for. So for instance, if the fifth house is in Leo, right, the individual will sacrifice all the planets that the sun is impacting for the well-being of their children. Or if the 10th house is in Leo, the individual may sacrifice all the things that the sun is influencing for the well-being of their status or their vocation, so to speak. It's a really simple way of looking at the horoscope and understanding something about the individual whose horoscope you're looking at. The sun will sacrifice the bhavas it influences, also to make the individual shine in the bhava in which the sun is placed. So let's explain that a little more deeply. The sun will sacrifice the bhavas that it influences in the chart to make the individual shine in the bhava in which the sun is placed. So this in that's over here should be an it. Right? So sacrifices the bhava it influences to make the individual shine in the bhava in which the sun is placed. So if the sun is placed in the 11th house, even if it's not Leo, then the sun will sacrifice the bhavas that it's influencing, right? So in other words, by aspect. So let's say if you've got the sun in the 4th, forming a direct aspect to the 10th, then that's going to make the individual sacrifice their vocation for the sake of greater gains in their life, or for the sake of the collective, both of which are 11th house matters. Okay, let's look at another thing. If the person has the sun in the ascendant, they were born at sunrise, right? That sun will be aspecting the 7th. And let's say that sun happens to be placed in the 5th, right? That sun is going to separate the individual again from their spouse for the well-being of their children, so to speak. So just some of the simple ways to understand what the sun does. And you can actually use this as a quick technique to understand a lot about the individual whose chart that you're looking at. Equally, the sun will also sacrifice the Grahas, or the other planets that it influences, in order to make the individual shine in the bhava in which the sun is placed. So again, let's say, for instance, the sun happened to be placed in the, let's say, the second house, right? Well, that person, and let's say the sun is influencing, Jupiter, right? Well, that may make the person sacrifice gaining finances for the well-being of his family, so that he can really shine in the family area, right? So this is a really simple sun technique. I thought it would be really fun to give this technique. Okay. Jupiter, this is the order of how auspicious particular planets are and how inauspicious particular planets are, or how Somya and how Krura the planets are. Jupiter and Venus are spoken of as auspicious. The moon is said to be somewhat so. Mercury is neutral. Called evil, also cruel, are the Sun, Saturn, and Mars. The waxing moon, Mercury, Jupiter, and Venus are more and more strong in that particular order. So the moon is benefic, Mercury is more Somya, Jupiter is even more Somya than that, and Venus is more Somya than that even. We'll cover that later on. And in terms of the Krura Grahas, the waning moon is the least Krura, the sun after that. Saturn and Mars's strength succeed each other. So Mars is considered, and you would think Saturn would be, but Mars is considered the most Krura of the Grahas. And later on in the series, you'll come to understand why. Here's why the sun is not really that Krura. Certainly the sun will create separation from that it influences in the chart, but it's doing so for something that is much more important for the individual, and as you'll soon see, something the individual finds to be much more inspiring. So this actually eases the pain of the separation that the sun causes. The sun is Sarva Atman. Okay, so we'll read, this is another stanza from Brihat Parashara Horus Shastra, obviously. The sun is Sarva Atman, the moon Manas, Mars Sattvam. The consciousness spoken is Mercury giving speech. Jupiter is joy giving knowledge, giving knowing rather. Venus, the giver of Virya, and Saturn grants sorrow, as told by the ancient rishis. So what is meant by Sarva Atman? The sun is Sarva Atman, the whole self, the whole soul, right? So through the sun, we gain intuitive knowledge of our true self, right? Equally, in terms of the body, the sun, when the sun is strong, the individual will work harder to become more whole in their body, right? There's more of a chance of doing that, more whole in their body. So the sun, when used properly, can grant wholeness of body, strength of body through purification and through steadfastness and through strength, okay? And equally in terms of the spiritual being, the sun gives the wholeness of the being. Okay, to the degree of the strength of the sun, things along those lines. With each of the planets has a particular place in the royal court of planets, as we're going to go over next. And then we'll focus on how the sun fits in with that. The sun and moon are the sovereigns. They're the king and the queen, respectively. The overseer, or you can think of it also as the general, is Mars. Mercury is the young sovereign, or the prince, so to speak. The counselors are Jupiter and Venus. The menial, or the servant, is Saturn, and the army is Rahu and Ketu. in this succession, O wise, the sun, etc., should be reflected upon. So the sun as the king. Well, the soul really should be the king of all things, right? Many of us make our mind or our ego the king of all things. And when we're focusing more on the ego, that's more of the negative aspect of the sun. Instead, we need to be focusing on the soul. The sun, like a good king will do, will give the strength to act in purity and co-create with the subjects and equally with all of his court, right? And similarly, a strong sun will give the strength to act in purity and co-create with the soul of all things, co-create with everything that's placed in one's path on the planet. It's a simple way to understand the sun is king. And if you reflect upon that more deeply, I'm sure you'll find your own ways to look at it. This is the gender of the planets. Eunuch are the two, Mercury and Saturn. Young women are the moon and Venus, O twice born. And men are to be known the remaining, Sun, Mars, and Jupiter. Masculine planets like to be respected for their actions and for their thoughts. So how is the sun a masculine planet, right? Well, first of all, let's look at the fact that the sun only rules one sign, okay? Whereas most of the other planets, with the exception of the moon, rule two signs. And the sun's one sign that it rules is Leo, which is a masculine sign, okay? In addition to that, the sun is going to be very strong in its actions, right? It's going to try to always have lots of courage, lots of strength when it's well dignified in order to fulfill its purpose. Why? Because it wants to can protect others, which is a positive masculine trait. It wants to protect that which is within its kingdom or that which is within its domain. So the sun is like the supreme masculine planet. Okay? And we're just going to cover some quick things on this, expand upon them, but cover them briefly, just to give you a general idea of each of the planets. Otherwise, we'd be here talking for 2 hours or so on each planet. Could be fun, but hard to do sometimes. Jupiter and Venus are of the wise Brahmin caste. Mars and the Sun are Kshatriyas, O twice born. The Moon and Mercury are Vaishya caste, and Saturn is a Sudra, O good twice born. That again is from Brihat Parashara Horus Shastra. What are the Kshatriyas? Kshatriyas are concerned with being warriors for a cause. They're concerned with being the heroes. Equally, kings are considered Kshatriyas. They're concerned with protecting others that are weaker than them. That is their dharma, right? So the sun is going to be noble in nature. A good sun will want to protect those that are within his kingdom, right? And he's going to want to be strong and really be a hero, as we saw from the name Shura. So the sun is a Kshatriya planet. Following on from Brihat Parashara Horus Shastra, Jupiter, the Sun, and Moon are Sattva by nature. Mercury and Venus are Rajas, and Saturn and Mars are Tamas in nature, O twice born. Okay, so Sattvic planets. Sattva means a lot of different things. Sat means truth. Sattva means truth or purity. Also that which inspires. When an individual is pure in mind, pure in heart, and purely themselves without the influence of the egocentric mind, then they can be more sattvic by nature, more balanced, more pure. Okay? Here's something about the form of the planets, and this is the form of the sun. Honey yellow-eyed is the sun, square and radiantly pure. Now, of course, the sun's round in the sky, but he's square in form and radiantly pure, O twice born. Of Pitta nature, intelligent, masculine, with but little hair, O twice born. We're going to touch on some of these. We're not going to touch on the little hair bit, right? Well, maybe that is a good thing to do, okay? Because let's touch on that first. There are some qualities in Vedic astrology that relate things to insects. And insects have a lot of hair on their body, so they're very sensitive. And the sun is not going to have quite, it isn't going to have little hair, you know, a lot of hair. It's going to be more less sensitive, more straightforward, so to speak, right? As you'll see when we get into some other qualities of the planet. Honey yellow-eyed. The sun will be able to see the sweetness in all things, and it will want to protect those things that are dear to it, okay? Square, right? When things are square in body, they generally tend to be very stalwart, steadfast, and strong, and radiantly pure. That kind of speaks for itself. Pitta is very fiery or fast-moving energy, right? So Pitta by nature. Intelligent, because it can see all things because of its brightness, and equally masculine. Each of the planets has a quality, and the remainder of what we're going to talk about here is from a text called Jataka Parajata. Okay, the luminaries are the sun and moon. The starry Grahas are the 5 beginning from Mars, and dark of form are Rahu and Ketu. So the luminaries are the sun and moon. The planets that are the luminaries help us to see our true self, to understand our true nature. And the sun equally will shed light on that. The sun represents our pure self in its pure being. And the sun will come along and purify all those things that aren't related to our true self, so that we can truly shine and so that we can truly see our own true nature. The sun and Mercury possess the form of a bird. Possessed of a creeping form is the moon. Jupiter and Venus are 2-footed. 4-footed are Saturn and Mars. So the sun and Mercury possess the form of a bird. If you watch birds, they're always busy. They're always either flying or looking for food, always taking care of things. And the sun and Mercury are both also 2 planets that are always going to be very busy, always involved in something. Okay, so the sun is always going to want to be very active, always taking care of those that are within his kingdom, always making sure that the kingdom is running well, because, hey, being a king is a bit of a difficult job, right? Upward looking is the gaze of the sun and Mars. We'll read the rest of this later, but let's focus on the sun and Mars. Upward looking planets are always looking to improve upon things. The sun is always looking to improve upon his kingdom, always looking, as he also has the form of a bird, he's always busy looking up in order to find ways to improve upon his kingdom, at the sacrifice of all the other planets that the sun is influencing. Even if the sun is a friend of that planet and is equally kind of helping that planet, the sun is still sacrificing that planet for the well-being of his own kingdom and for those things that he's trying to improve upon. Okay? So let's see what we've got next. Saturn, the sun, and Mars are dry. Dry planets are not going to be very emotional by nature. They just get on with whatever needs to be done, and they somewhat expect other people to do the same. Doesn't always work that way, obviously, but they don't understand why other individuals are can't just get on with things, right? So when planets are dry by nature, so let's say, for instance, the sun rules the 5th in the chart, right? Or the sun is somehow associated with children, then one's children might be dry. Or let's say the sun is associated with one's spouse might be dry, right? He'll be able to, kind of take care of everything that needs to be taken care of for the household, but he's just going to want to get on with things and may not be, considering other factors present in the chart, of course, may not be quite as sensitive or emotional in nature. Okay, that is the last of our slides. Let's go back to the main screen. So as you can see, we've covered some qualities of the sun, just touched on them briefly, just because I wanted to give you some general ideas in order to reflect upon and in order to more deeply understand. Next video, we're going to focus on the moon and many of the qualities of the moon. And until that time, please take the best care of yourself. Bye now.